This is Adam Watson.
Robert Diaz.
You're listening to the Darkslinger Mafia podcast. So we're not going to do what we had planned on doing tonight because Levon said he had to sleep off what he said was a migraine, but I think he's actually sleeping off a little bit of booze. That's what I think.
Can go hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, probably not because he doesn't really drink that much, but that's what I think happened. So we're not going to be doing the second part of the comic distribution this week. We're going to do that when you get back from your trip. Do you want to say where you're going?
I'm going to Louisiana.
And how many days are you going for?
4 nights, I think. 5 days.
4 nights and 5 days? Nice.
Well, I mean, the last day is getting back here.
Are you going to be there during Mardi Gras?
No.
When does that happen?
Mardi Gras is Fat Tuesday.
That's got to be during the summertime,
before
right?
Ash Wednesday. No, because Ash Wednesday is the start of Lent.
Uh-huh.
And Lent ends on Easter.
Oh, okay. Well, spring.
Yeah, this year.
It is pretty hot down there in spring, right?
It's projected some storms when we're there, like some chance of thunder and lightning.
Okay.
But it's still like 70 degrees.
It's not one of the places being hit with all the snowstorms right now, right?
No, that's all up north, I think.
Okay, I thought so. But shows you how much attention I pay to anything, you know?
No, it's getting pretty bad up there. Supposedly their temperatures are like with the wind chill factor they say it's near Antarctic.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a news story last night that said that it was actually going to be colder than it is at the North Pole, Alaska, and Antarctica.
There was a really cool thing that they, you know where train tracks come together, like they split to go on different rails?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lit those on fire in some of those states.
To get them thawed out?
Yeah, so they can be able to move their tracks.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, they
so there's video of them just like a long set of tracks where like there's 4 different sets to come together. They're just on fire.
They just poured denatured alcohol over
I don't know what they poured on it, but
that's crazy.
It's burning, so it can move.
Oh, that's crazy. So you have anything fun planned while you're down there?
A tour, a walking tour. That'll give some history, and get to go to a cemetery, so that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's what I would like to do if I went down there.
Yeah,
I'd go to as many of the cemeteries as possible.
And there's a hop-on, hop-off bus that we're going to do.
What's a hop-on, hop-off bus?
So you pay, it's like $40 or something like that, a ticket.
Uh-huh.
And it goes as long as the bus runs all day. I don't know how long that is. But they have so many destinations around the city, and I think the driver's supposed to talk about places they go. I don't know, I don't care. They drop you off at different sections, and there's just like a team of buses that keep running the route, so you can always get back on a different bus that comes along however long later and go to a different place.
Okay.
So you hop on wherever you're at and hop off wherever you want.
Okay.
And then you just keep doing that. It's a way to be able to see the city.
Well, it sounds like a great time. I've never been there.
Me either, but it's old and it's spooky, so...
One of my cousins got arrested there because she had coke on her.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like some normal day.
She was actually living there. She worked as a bartender, and she claims that it was not her cocaine.
Doesn't everybody claim that?
Yeah, no, she claimed it to me, not to the cops. I mean, I'm sure she claimed it to the cops too, but she told me that it was a thing to where one of the guys that she worked with at the bar or restaurant or whatever it was had put a vial in her purse, and she didn't see it, so she didn't take it out when she was at home. And then the cops had pulled her over and just mysteriously, randomly searched her car, which I was like, did they have a warrant to do that? Was there probable cause to search your car? Like, why did they just randomly choose you to search? I think it's probably because she was sniffing a lot, rubbing her nose, and had a runny nose, you know, something along those lines.
Something similar to
that's what I'm thinking, because I know this cousin pretty well, you know. But
could have been.
But in any case, she got caught with a vial of coke and got arrested when she was leaving New Orleans last time.
Wow, that sucks. Besides that, it's just...
The parts that I'm sure were holes in her story, though, is it probably was not being pulled over. She was probably going through the security gate at an airport. Oh. That's what I think. Because it was when she was leaving New Orleans that she got arrested.
Besides that, it's just eating all the food and listening to whatever music is going.
Are you going to find the Chinese food restaurant that originated bourbon chicken while you're down there?
I didn't know that was there, but yeah, I'd try to find
Bourbon
that.
chicken is called that because it was made on Bourbon Street in New Orleans.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. I actually made a version though, that uses bourbon. Because I thought it would be a good thing to make sauce with.
I
But
would
real
hope.
bourbon chicken doesn't actually use bourbon.
Well, that's why I would think it's called bourbon chicken.
No, it's called that because it was made on Bourbon Street in a Chinese food restaurant. So you should find that place just so you can have what could potentially still be the recipe for the original bourbon chicken. I just want to know what it tastes like in comparison with the stuff we eat up here.
And then come back and try yours and be like, "Oh, this is shit."
You could do that because I want to know what it tastes like comparatively.
I'll mail you back a container.
All right, that sounds good to me.
Overnight it, maybe it'll still be good.
It very well might be. You could overnight it. Yeah, that'd work.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten there's like ice cream subscriptions. I've gotten ice cream sent before.
Ice cream subscriptions?
Yeah.
How does
Salt
that
and
work?
Straw does it, like a monthly sort of thing, and you can pay, and they just put it in a cooler packet with some dry ice.
Huh.
Ship it to you.
Weird. That's one thing we need to actually go into when we return to talking about various places to buy comics next week.
Write that down.
We forgot to mention subscription boxes.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. There are a lot that have kind of came and went in the last couple of years. But
I feel like at the base level of a subscription box, comic shops have probably been doing that a long time, just on the pull list for people. Instead of a subscription,
you don't mean like
box.
the blind box sort of
Yeah.
thing. You mean that? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean like where it kind of would have originated.
There have been comic shops doing that for a long time, and that is something we need to take a deeper dig into because I've actually been thinking about doing something similar to that with Darkslinger because I want to get subscriptions going again. Like, I don't understand why comics quit offering subscriptions when every other single type of periodical offers them, you know?
Yeah, it is a good idea. Like,
Yeah, when I was
call
a
the number
kid,
in the back. Get your subscription.
I was a kid, there were the certain titles that I always knew would be on the stands, right? But there were a few that I knew the local stores around here wouldn't carry, and going to a comic shop when I was a kid was like a special treat. So I had subscriptions, I think, to 2 or 3 different Marvel titles that I didn't figure I could get locally. They always came a little bit beat up, you know. When something's just shipped through the mail like that, you know it's going to come that way.
Do you want to get into this right now?
No, that's just all I'm really saying about it at the moment. We'll talk about
okay.
it more in depth when Levon's here, because for all I know, he actually had a subscription. I don't know.
He
But
might even still have.
We'll go into that a little
subscription
bit
box
more,
right
and we'll
now.
talk about... I know you've had Loot Crate before I've had Geek Fuel.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that because I'm sure there's a certain element of the disappointing factor that a lot of them have that I want to go into too.
Yeah.
'Cause I will just tell you this story really quick, and if I repeat it next week, you know, oh well. I had got a Geek Fuel box because they'd sent me a coupon to get one for $6 shipping included, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so why not? And the same day that it showed up, I had also got a bunch of packets in the mail for printer examples from the various printers that I was talking to about Ghost Assassin. One of them was from a company called Print Ninja. Print Ninja included a few different comics inside of it, a book that tells you all the different paperweights, which is fantastic. Like, you know, thank you very much, Print Ninja, for sending that out because it's really actually handy to have that as a reference book. But
You still have it?
Yeah, I still have that.
Nice.
In addition, they included this pen that looks like a old Chinese sword, like an old honor sword, and a ninja bandana.
That's pretty badass for
Right?
a print company.
Yeah, so they have like this whole setup that they send out with their sample kit. So I opened that up in the Geek Fuel box at the same time, and all my kids are sitting there, and they were all way more into the Print Ninja box.
Well, it sounds pretty cool.
Right? But it's just kind of funny because, you know, I open up the Geek Fuel box, and there's like a mustard yellow Captain Kirk shirt from Star Trek. I like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, but I'm not a Star Trek fan in general, you know? I never watched the old original series. Not that I have anything against it, I've just never really watched it.
Yeah, I never watched it either.
So, getting a shirt of him, I was like, okay, I would not wear a shirt that had William Shatner on it, no matter what character he's playing.
What if it was just like a really big picture of his face?
No, I would probably give that to Alex. But on top of it being mustard yellow.
Well, that's their shirt, though.
Yeah, but it wasn't the Star Trek yellow. It was
It was let's not get sued yellow.
okay. It wasn't Grey Poupon yellow. It was Fran's mustard yellow. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it was let's not get sued yellow.
Yeah, that works. That's good enough.
Unlicensed product sort of yellow.
But anyway, we can get into that a bit more. I'm sure Levon's bought subscription boxes in the past too, so we'll talk about all that.
Probably.
I would imagine. I would bet. We could be wrong though. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if there are any Ninja Turtle specific boxes, but there are horror specific. So he's probably bought one of those.
Yeah, Loot Crate has a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, not just Loot Crate, but a lot of different companies actually do horror boxes, and those I'm actually more interested in than most of the comic boxes that I see, because my stuff often has a better reception with people who are horror fans than it does people who are comic fans. So,
Well, I got some things to say. Not much, but we'll get into that.
okay. So anyway, you're gonna go and you're gonna eat some bourbon chicken, and you plan on going to any sort of music shows, anything like that?
No actual music shows planned, but step into a bar and listen to it. That
Yeah,
sort
they
of
have
thing.
to have some play.
I'm hoping that there be some live music just like outside.
I don't see how there couldn't be. That's one of
Yeah.
the things they're famous for.
Exactly. And everyone that I've talked to that's been there all say walking around is just as good as doing anything.
I believe that.
Just seeing all the people, seeing everything.
Well, I will say I'm jealous. Yeah.
I think the only better time
I think
to
it's
go,
awesome that you're going. So
It is. The only better time I think to go would be Halloween.
that would be cool.
There's some places that I want to go for Halloween, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be sweet.
It's such an old city. There's so many creepy.
So
Things
see
that
if you
happen
can
about
find
it.
a comic shop there. And you don't have to go into it because I know you're on vacation, but take some pictures of the outside of it. I just want to see what a comic shop in the middle of New Orleans would look like.
I'll Google it. I'll see if there's any down there.
Okay.
Maybe there'll be something good in there.
Maybe you can drag Nicole in there and then we can see if she found it to be female friendly or not, so we can finally figure out what that means.
She'd probably be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm sure she would be. So, yeah, that's yet another topic for the next podcast.
Female-friendly comic shops.
Well, yeah, I want to know what these male comic creators mean by female-friendly comic shop. There's not a lot of difference between comic shops and bookstores that are around here, at least. They, maybe more collectibles.
We're getting into
Yeah,
getting
that's
into
true.
next
That's true.
week's topic.
So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the big controversy in comics this week. Bill Maher.
What about him?
So I had you watch his video right before we started podcasting, where he's talking shit about comic fans.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, yeah, anybody can say whatever they want. But there's been a lot of creators who issued backlash, and one of the things that Neil Gaiman said that I thought was really good, and he actually said this way before this, but it's been quoted a lot, is he had stated that if you create a book that has words in it, it's immediately considered for adults. If you paint a picture, and it's a painting, it's immediately considered to be for adults. But you combine those two things, and for some reason, it's immediately considered to be for a kid. So the biggest exception I took to everything Bill had said was he made too much of a weird equivalency to comics and superheroes being one and the same thing. And I understand he doesn't read comics. He's not really that aware of them. Although I'd say he's aware of superhero movies to some degree since he appeared in one. But not all comics are superhero stuff.
No, definitely not.
So I thought that was kind of a weird thing to say. But the only thing I really want to say about everything with that is I think he's scared of people remaining 14 years old. Because one day when he was walking out of a movie theater, he got his ass kicked by 14-year-olds.
That's your theory?
Yes. No, it did happen. It's my theory based on something that actually happened.
That's why he hates kids.
Yes.
You damn young people.
So years ago, he was on the Howard Stern show. And Howard had heard this somewhere. And have you ever actually listened to the Howard Stern show?
No.
Okay, well, when he has heard something and he wants somebody to comment on it, he won't just ask it once and then let it go. He's like a petulant child. He'll ask again and again and again until they'll finally give him an answer, right? So he had heard somewhere that Bill had got his ass kicked coming out of a movie theater by a bunch of 14-year-old kids. And so he kept asking him about it and asking about it and asking about it. Finally admitted, yeah, it was true. So basically what happened is he was in this movie with a date, and these kids were in front of him being loud and obnoxious, and he told them to shut the fuck up. And when they were walking out of the movie, the kids jumped him and beat the shit out of him.
That's not cool.
It's funny.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of funny. Those kids should have shut the fuck up, though.
I agree with that. I've told 14-year-old kids to shut the fuck up in a movie theater before. I've never had my ass kicked coming out of there.
Yeah, they should shut the fuck up. Someone needs to tell them. Their parents should probably tell them.
Parents probably should, but their parents probably just dropped them off beforehand. But what I wonder is, was he seeing a superhero movie when that happened? Was he in seeing, like, the first Iron Man movie?
I don't know.
And he was all into it, and he's all happy, and he loved the whole superhero element. And then he came out and got his ass kicked, and he's like, fuck you, Iron Man. And then years later, they asked him to be in Iron Man 3, and every night after filming, he woke up in a cold sweat thinking about when he got his ass whooped by those 14-year-olds.
Dude, that's a very good theory.
It's the theory I'm going with.
You should write to him, ask him.
I should.
I've watched his show a bit. He's pretty hard-lined in his viewpoints.
Oh, yeah, very.
And, you know, that's okay. Sometimes I think sometimes he drills people a little too hard and you don't let him get any words in. Yeah,
he's very, very rigid.
Yeah.
He's not a real interviewer in that sense because he's very rigid with his beliefs.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a good thing, but
sometimes,
you know, in this sort of scenario, that didn't work because, you know, you're stereotyping comics, you're stereotyping the people that read them.
It's what he's done throughout his career, though. This is a guy who stereotyped every single person who is religious too.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how many people listen to this. I don't know how many people even like us, but
who knows?
You know, maybe if someone really does like us because they really like comics and they like hearing all our stupid bullshit, they might not like it after I say this. I agree with him that it's not great cinema.
Oh, you mean superhero movies?
Yeah, any of these Marvel movies, you know, they're popcorn flicks. They're entertaining to watch. I like it, but I don't call any of it great cinema. They're entertaining movies.
You're distinguishing between movies that are actually really say something and make you think versus something that just mindlessly entertains you.
Yeah, because they're great entertainment.
I would fully agree with that with the superhero movies Marvel has made. I would say the Punisher TV show did actually make me think to a degree on a few different things.
Made you feel a little more crazy than you already are, didn't it? They're watching you.
Maybe a little bit.
They're watching you. They're listening to you. They're listening to you right now.
But there were a lot of people that I had seen that had attacked the first season of Punisher for being like
I liked it.
Anti-soldier and all this stuff. But, you know, the kid who's out in the hole, that dug himself in the hole, you know, who did end up going crazy and murdering people, you know, but like who's out there in the hole and everything. Nobody knew how to help that kid with what he had done over in Iraq. And I thought that was way more potent than most things I've seen that deal with soldiers, you know?
Yeah. This is making me want to go back and watch it again.
Oh, it's a great show. I love that show. I would say that show actually had a lot of relevance, real world in a lot of ways. And there's a lot there that you could kind of dissect if you watched it a few times. But I do go what you're saying with like Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy. They're just movies that are meant to entertain you and make you laugh, make you smile, make you happy, right? The X-Men movies, same thing. The DC movies, same thing. And I love the vast majority of those, certainly not all of them. Logan's fucking fantastic movie.
That's probably the best one of those movies to come
out. It
is.
Any sort of I would say, though, that those are not all the superhero movies that have been made, though.
Yeah.
You watch something like Defendor, which, to the best of my knowledge, is not based on a comic, but is certainly based off someone's love for comics, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, but he's talking more nowadays, all the movies that come out.
He is.
Based off these comics.
When he was talking, he made a bad equivalency towards all comic movies and all comic fans and everything being all superheroes, right? And it's like, okay, but Lucifer isn't a superhero TV show. Happy isn't a superhero TV show. A History of Violence is not a superhero movie, and it's It was published by DC Comics, by the way. You know what History of Violence is, right? With Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, that's based on a comic. Road to Perdition, one of the greatest cinematic movies that's ever been made. When you're talking about great cinema,
I haven't seen that movie.
I know you haven't,
I really
but
should.
it would be hard to make a movie that's better cinematically than A Road to Perdition. You got fantastic actors in it. Tom Hanks, Jude Law. God, I'm drawing a blank on a bunch of people. Who's the guy that is the current James Bond?
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig is in it in a role like you've never seen him play before, because he's kind of this Weasley sort of grew up as the head mafia boss's son, and he's basically a spoiled asshole that just does whatever he wants and fuck everybody else, you know. He's the one who causes like everything to fall apart in that movie. The boss in it is played by Paul Newman, who plays the role really, really well. You know, Paul Newman hasn't done a lot of movies in the last, 30 years. He played the mob boss in that, and he was great. The relationship between him and Tom Hanks, because the whole movie is about like fathers and sons. You know, whether they're your real father or not, you know, that's like what the whole premise is. But it's based in, I believe, 1930s or 40s, judging by the cars. Maybe 1920s. It's early gangster periods. And
always a fun time in movies.
They did all of the cinematography so well in that. All of the clothing, the cars that they drive, the weapons they use. Everything is fantastic in that movie. And, you know, I know there are certain stereotypes that come up when you mention...
Stanley Tucci's in it.
Stanley Tucci's in it, yes. And there are certain stereotypes that come up just naturally when you mention gangsters.
1931 is when it's supposed
31,
to take place.
Okay. But this is not... It doesn't fall into any of the stereotypes that any of the gangster movies fall into. So that is a fantastic film that's based off a comic. I highly recommend you watch.
Would you highly recommend The Read as well?
The Read?
Yeah, reading it.
Reading it? You know, it was a much better movie than it was a comic. So here's the thing.
So like in the same way
I read V for Vendetta. Yeah.
Or Watchmen. Is that
No, I think Watchmen is actually better in a comic, but I do love the movie. But I will say V for Vendetta, I prefer the movie.
I've read some of it. But
I will
it's okay.
State something with both of those two. I read the comics after I watched the movies, with both Road to Perdition and V for Vendetta.
Really?
Yeah, had I read them in comic form and then watched the movies, maybe I would have liked the comics more. But having watched the movies first, I was like, okay, so this is what the comics could have been, because they took this premise and elevated it, you know? So it wasn't like, you know, when you watch X-Men or Hellboy or any of those things, they've kind of taken the best parts of the comics.
Yeah.
V for Vendetta and Road to Perdition, I felt more like they took the elements of what were there in the comics and elevated it to a new type of storytelling.
Well, you also have to try to appeal to a bigger audience, too.
Yes. But instead of just taking the best parts, they actually changed things up to change the narrative flow, you know, in both those movies.
Yeah. It's understandable. You have to do that.
Right. So, you know, to say that all comics are this one thing is factually incorrect. I don't make superhero comics, you know? And what, because you read a certain medium when you're 14, you can't when you're 40? So because I watched movies when I was 5, I'm not supposed to watch movies when I'm 50?
No, I think it's totally okay to still keep doing that, you know? You just, as long as you actually grew up, you can still keep doing whatever. Right. That's all good.
And that's where a whole lot of the dissension against what he's saying is coming from. Is why, okay, if you want to just make a point that people need to grow up in general, which I would certainly think is a point he's making when he mentions like the adulting hashtags and things like that.
Yeah, people that do that, they're fucking
why
idiots.
would you use Stanley's death as the occasion to try and get on that podium? I guess because you're Bill Maher and you're an arrogant blowhard.
Well,
who's
there
funny,
is that.
But
I mean, you make a lot more noise when people are gathered together.
True.
And they were all gathered together over that. You know, It didn't affect me. You know, my world was the same with him as without him. It just means that I'm not going to have to see him pushed into a Marvel movie. That's going to be the only difference.
Yeah.
Didn't affect me. Sure, this dude did a lot, but did the other people that he worked with get as much credit?
Oh, no. They weren't as famous.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing like when Alan Moore dies, all the attention for Watchmen and all that will be shifted completely onto him. So that's not necessarily anything Stan Lee did. That's just a side effect of how his personality was. You know, some people, for some reason, just get glummed on to become kind of famous or micro-famous or whatever you want to say than other people do.
I bet he was a lot more talkative and personable than the others.
Yes, Jack Kirby seemed like he was actually a very, very personable person, but he also seemed like he was very hermited. You know, he just wanted his drawing table at his house with his wife, you know, or at the offices and then go home and did that. Stan Lee, on the other hand, even dating back to the 60s, he's the guy who went out and did interviews on TV shows. He's the guy who did the voiceover on the cartoons. You know, he introduced Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in the 70s. So I heard his voice long before I knew what he did in comics, because I heard him introducing Spider-Man in those rerun episodes that I had no clue were reruns when I was a kid.
So he's that stereotypical sort of artist that needs vindication to feel good about themselves.
No, not necessarily. It was more like he's going to get more money if he goes out and does this. It's just smart business practice, really.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, I don't think that it had anything to do with, oh, look at me, I created this, I created that. I think it was more like, I'm the editor at Marvel, and hey, if I can get TV shows going for these characters I created, that means more money for me. And if I do this, and I have this voiceover part in this, it's going to be more money for me. I mean, you know, there's a double-edged sword to doing the cameos in the movies. On the one hand, he got to have fun and go and play literally in the world he created. You know, people are acting like live-action versions.
That's really cool.
And, yeah, he didn't create every single one of those characters. He appeared Wolverine, Deadpool. He didn't have anything to do with the creation of either of those characters. I don't think he created a single one of the characters that was in the main team for Guardians of the Galaxy. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think so. But, you know, on the one hand, he got to go and be a literal live-action part to something he created. And no matter what anybody thinks about Stan Lee, he created some of it. What he created and what Jack Kirby created and what Steve Ditko created, you know, that can be argued about all day. The simplistic fact is probably none of them even knew. Because they were all old by the time that argument got started. You know?
Yeah, that dude's been old since the 70s.
And the simplistic fact is Jack Kirby created a shit ton of things, right? But you take a look at Kirby's writing before and after Stan Lee. Stan Lee definitely contributed something. Because you take a look at, like, X-Men with Jack Kirby, and it's not a thing like anything Jack Kirby did before or after his career. The characters have a completely different voice. So Stan Lee contributed personalities to the characters, things like that Jack Kirby wouldn't have been able to do the same way, you know? So, who contributed what? That's a tired thing that doesn't matter. They're all, you know, Steve Ditko's dead at this point. Stan Lee's dead at this point. Jack Kirby's dead at this point. So that's an argument that just needs to be put to rest, yeah.
They're all dead,
but
get over it.
The simplistic fact is, you know, you got to do that, but you also got to get paid. So if they give me an opportunity to be like, hey, you want to make cameo in your movies? For starters, you get to actually, you know, be on set when we have the live action, you know, David and Todd from Ghost Assassin.
That'd be cool.
Plus, we'll write you a check for $50,000. You think I'm not going to do it? Of course I'm going to do it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Why the hell wouldn't I do it, you know? And I totally get and respect, like, Alan Moore's stance on it, where he's like, I created that to be a comic, I didn't create that to be a movie. I don't want to see the movie version, I don't want to profit off any of it, give it all to my artists, you know? If you want to give the payments out, you give them to my artists, you don't give them to me.
That's cool.
I get all that. That's very respectable. And it's also that stance that he's taken that has made him mainstream famous. Him getting in the news for refusing Watchmen money is probably what's linked to him appearing in an episode of The Simpsons. You know, things like that.
And then after he got in the news and everyone realized how odd this dude is, that drew even more attention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't go around calling yourself the Wizard of Northampton and not, you know, attract some some attention. People are going to be interested in you, you know?
You do a pretty good impression of him. Just like it doesn't even have to be like something that he actually said. If you just say something in your
Alan Moore
your
voice.
Alan Moore voice,
Yeah.
it works. It's funny.
But, you know, I got a ton of respect for him, but it's just a simplistic fact. When he passes, all the fame for V for Vendetta, for Watchmen, you know, all that is going to be very focused on Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be talking about any of the brilliant stuff that O'Neill did in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's all going to be whatever brilliant thing Alan Moore did in it. You know, stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't see the point in doing trolling through your TV show at someone's death. That doesn't seem necessary. Kevin Smith had tweeted out a thing that's like, no need to take shots where shots aren't needed. I agree with that. But I think it comes back to the same thing. Bill Maher got beat up by 14-year-olds outside a movie theater.
That's where it all spins back
And
to.
I am hypothesizing that was a superhero movie he was seeing.
You know, it's like 1,000,000,000 to 1 with all the things on the internet, but how great would it be if somehow that got to him and he got to hear you say that?
It'd be fantastic.
That'd be hilarious.
Now, all that being said, I am a firm believer in free speech and all that, and you can have whatever dumb fucking opinion you want.
Yeah, it's still yours.
And if your dumb fucking opinion is that all comics are superhero comics and that they're all for children and everything, that's fine. That's great. You can have that. It doesn't affect me. When I saw how many comic creators were tweeting out about it and, you know, posting on Facebook about it and everything, I was just more like, why are you guys letting Bill Maher affect you so much?
Yeah, move the fuck along. Stop letting everybody affect you.
You can't deny the guy is very, very intelligent politically, and that he's done a lot to keep free speech alive. He has. You know, his TV shows invite people in to talk that may not normally talk. You know, he's kept the free exchange of ideas going, and he's necessary to some degree in the political arena in that way, just like John Oliver is, just like Jon Stewart was, you know. Like, all those guys I think are necessary for free speech to occur.
Yeah, they may make jokes and satirize the news, but
Right.
they still kind of make points and they still say all these crazy things because they can.
Yeah. And all that being said, there's a lot of what he says is funny.
Bill Maher?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't laugh over every single thing he says, but there's a lot that I do.
When I used to watch his show, at the start I'd watch the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
and then after a while I didn't watch the panels. Didn't really care for his panels.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it was either everyone absolutely agreeing with someone,
Uh-huh.
with everybody, or it was 3 people all agreeing with him and one person that didn't, or however many people he has on.
Uh-huh.
And then the one person that doesn't agree with him gets about 1 minute to talk, where everybody else gets 4.
Yes. Yeah, it's shutdown tactics. It's just like what Bill O'Reilly did. Did you ever watch any of his show?
Not really, no.
I watched it just because I was curious what this crazy old grandpa was saying, you know?
He was saying crazy old grandpa things.
He was all the time. But man, was that guy rude to his guests. He would have people on and then he would just scream over them. And
Yeah, what's the point in that?
I don't know, but I will say that Marilyn Manson seemed to handle it the best.
Yeah,
Because when Bill O'Reilly was
haven't
just
seen it.
screaming over him and going on and on about this,
Oh, get off
Marilyn
my
Manson
lawn.
just very, very, very calmly sat there while he did all his screaming and yelling. And then after he was done, just kind of leaned forward and laid everything out. Totally dismantled everything Bill O'Reilly said. In a way that he couldn't really argue or refute it, you know? Because Manson is incredibly intelligent.
See, you know, I agree. Free speech, you gotta have it. I don't care if you hate someone, if you're
Yeah.
racist and whatnot. You can say that. That's all well and good. You can't like go and threaten people. There are limits to what you can say to someone. There's not limits on your own opinion, though.
Right.
But everybody on the internet these days blows up at the slightest whisper.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fucking ridiculous. Move on with your life. Why are you letting that ruin your life? It's someone that you don't know that doesn't say anything to you. It's never going to
That's the
affect
whole
you.
thing is so many people that I actually know. Not just people who are just, you know, random comic pros or anything like that, but people I actually legitimately talk to on the phone who come over to my house are so just upset by what Bill Maher said. And it's like, we don't need him to agree with us.
People's blood pressure's got to be through the roof. Not
Right?
from being fat anymore or anything like that. Just from the sheer stress they put on themselves of the littlest things they read.
It's got to
on the
be
internet.
so stressful being that goddamn triggered all the time.
I hate it. I would not be able to be. I feel like I used to be more like that, a lot more angry person.
Uh,
And then it's just exhausting.
it is. It is. I used to be angrier by far than what I am now.
Yeah, and then one day you realize, oh, I'm so tired.
Right.
Why am I so tired?
It was actually when I was in therapy. She was like, it takes more energy to be pissed off at the world than it does to just not let things affect you. I'm like, how do you not let things affect you?
And then you let that affect you, and you're like, holy shit, this
Right.
is what's wrong with me.
Right, exactly. And yeah, there's no point in just being pissed off over everything all the damn time,
Yeah, so just get back to reading your comics and watching your movies.
Right?
Move
I
along.
read the thing, or I watched the video Bill Maher did the other night. And then you know what I did as soon as I turned it off?
Decided to go read a comic?
Yep.
If
And it was a fucking great one.
And if you want to get back in them, don't even say anything. Go read a comic.
Right.
Go pay your $10 to watch a movie.
It was one that I was actually shocked at how great it was, by the way.
You remember some episodes ago, I don't remember how many when, because I never remember when we talk about what.
Yeah.
Just a plain old bad memory of that. We were talking about comics, and I was trying to tell you about one about a robot android boy.
Yes.
And I figured it out. It's called Descender.
Descender?
Descender. That I took a screenshot of it, so I remember.
Oh, I like the art.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can't
so
scroll
it's
on
an
'cause
image comic?
I just screenshot it.
Oh, okay.
The art's not my favorite type. That's the kind of art that I mean, that everything's a little too free-form and splashed out, less hard lines and things.
I like this kind of art.
But it didn't detract enough away from the story. I liked what was going on in it.
Uh-huh.
And the people on the cover right there, they don't all like each other at the start. It's interesting.
It looks interesting.
If you find it, I'd say pick it up to read it. Give it a read. See
I'll
what you think.
for sure be going to quite a few Comic Cons this.
I'd like to read the second one to that.
I'm pretty sure Image still charges $9.99 for all their Volume 1 graphic novels. So if that's all it costs, I'd pick it up and give it a shot.
That's not bad. I don't know how old it is. Maybe you'd find it for cheaper by now.
Maybe. It might be on like in stock trades too. They usually do, I think, 30 to 40% off all Image books.
I always forget what that website is called when I'm trying to tell someone about
In
it.
stock trades. It's really easy. In stock trades. Who are not a paid advertiser. We're just giving them a shout out.
Wouldn't that be great if they were?
Yeah, it would be. It would be. I'd actually be more than happy to just be paid with some credit. I don't care if they give me money. Just give me like $5 a month and I'll spend $50. So
Here you go. One young robot struggled to stay alive in a universe where all androids have been outlawed and bounty hunters lurk on every planet. A rip-roaring and heartfelt cosmic odyssey that pits humanity against machine and world against world to create a sprawling space opera from the creators of Trillium, Sweet Tooth, and Little Gotham.
I've heard really good things about Sweet Tooth. I have not.
So there's
that
the
up yet.
cover of Volume 1 that I read.
Oh, that looks good.
It looks good.
Okay, so this is Jeff Lemire. Yeah, he's one of the top-rated writers in comics right now. I don't know if I've ever actually read anything he's written, though. Let's see here. He's creator of For Image, AD After Death, Descender, Gideon Falls, Plutona, and Royal City. Yeah, I've not read a single one of those.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard plenty about him. I just don't think that I've read him yet. I haven't read a lot of modern guys.
Hey, cover price $9.99.
Yep. So yeah, I'd check that out.
Oh, it came out last year, August 1st. Published August 1st.
That's got to be easy to find at something like Cosmic Monkey or Things from Another World or whatever then.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, what I read was actually a Green Arrow book. So I had never read any Green Arrow except for the Kevin Smith run, which I thought was really good. But I had got the Longbow Hunters graphic novel collection.
I would hope for how much he loves comic books, he'd be a good writer for it.
hit or miss these days. But when he first started doing comics, and he did, I'm pretty positive that he actually wrote the Clerks comics, which were very, very funny. Clerks was very funny. It was, did you ever see the Clerks animated series?
No, didn't see that either.
Okay, it was closer in scope to that than it was the movies, but he didn't shy away from any of the sexual content or any of that kind of stuff that existed in the movies, so.
He kept it true to what it was.
Oh, yeah. If you like the movies, you would at least get a chuckle out of it. If you find it for like $2 or $3 at a Comic-Con, pick it up. And I'm talking about, the collection. I'm not talking about per issue. He wrote one of the best runs of Daredevil.
Yeah, that's what I
then
was about to say.
sometime after Daredevil, he wrote Green Arrow Quiver, and it was Oliver Queen's return to the DC universe because it was his son that had been Green Arrow forever.
So his run on both of these, it was like his own story arc that he wrote?
Yes.
So you can just pick up
a
few of those.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to be familiar with the content of either character prior to going into this. And that's one thing I liked about the Longbow Hunters. So the Longbow Hunters actually came out in 86, I think it said. And it was written by Mike Grell, who I've met a few times in person. He's a pretty cool guy. I thought it was funny. A comic shop that I was doing a signing at, we did an event day for Ty Wakefield years ago, and Mike Grell was one of the creators that came. I saw him walk in and didn't know who he was because he's just kind of this cowboy-looking guy, right?
Cowboy-looking guy.
Cowboy around here, not, fake cowboy that we get during the 4th of July when the Buckaroo's in town. I'm talking about, the guys who actually look like they're out there working on cows and everything. Because I was walking in the shop in Puyallup, and he had a rifle bag over his shoulder, and I'm like, holy shit, there's somebody going in to the shop with a gun. And I was like, but that's strange. I mean, if somebody's going to shoot up the place, why would they have it in a rifle bag? Why wouldn't they just be holding the rifle? Kind of weird. So I'm kind of sitting there watching, and then I see him hand it over to Chuck, the guy who owned the shop, and Chuck kind of checked it behind his counter. Like, huh. So I go walking in, and I lean over to Chuck, and I'm like, hey, who just brought the gun in here? He's like, oh, that's Mike Grell. I'm like, oh, okay, so, he actually... It was apparently hunting season, and he stopped at the shop to do the signing as he was getting back from his hunting trip.
That's not...
So he didn't want to leave the rifle in the car because, it's kind of irresponsible when you're in the middle of the city.
That's not what you would expect.
Right?
You don't think of comic book people as people that own guns, that hunt, let alone carry guns.
I will say, though, that the generation Mike Grell comes from is a completely different generation than as it exists today.
How old is he?
So, yeah, he's an older guy.
Oh, yeah.
So
he's more gun happy kind of
Mike
guy.
Grell, fantastic creator. He's created a lot of things, but Green Arrow he actually worked on for, I'm going to say, 80 issues following this miniseries. And kind of reinvented how you know the character. But as I started reading, I was quite surprised because, I thought of this as just kind of a mainstream superhero tale, but it was released in 1986 and it's got sex and all kinds of things in there like that, like nudity. And so as I'm reading, I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to be saying words like shit and be talking about crack and actually calling it crack instead of, some made up word for crack.
You didn't expect to see that bat dick there.
I still have not seen the Bat Dick from actually reading the comics because I haven't read Batman the Damned yet.
Well, you also don't want to pay that price for it either.
Right. But I will say, just kind of talking about the comic creators of that time period, at Marvel and DC, there seemed to be more real diversity in the types of creators that you got than what you get now. There's a few writers that really stand above that they have now. Like, when you pick up a Jason Aaron book, Jason Aaron wrote that. He's got a very distinct way he writes. His characters are very well fleshed out. The characterization and dialogue.
But okay.
Have you read Scalped?
No.
Southern Bastards?
No.
Okay. Well, Jason Aaron is the creator of both those. So he's probably what I would consider to be their top talent, right? And they have a few of those guys, but for the most part, there's a lot of them who are just kind of, not to be mean, but they're kind of interchangeable. They all write the same exact kind of dialogue. They all write the exact same sort of, You know, their people are all very one-dimensional, non-believable. You know, like when you read Colder.
Well, you don't really. When you're big, yeah, you can take more chances, but at the same time, you don't take too many chances because people like what they already have.
Yeah, but how is it not taking a chance or taking a chance to write a character so far out of the scope of what the character has been shown and just to have the same voice no matter what character you're writing? If you're writing Magneto, he shouldn't sound exactly like Professor Xavier, who for some reason sounds like Jubilee did back in 1993.
He's so sparkly with that
So
bald head.
the whole thing is like all of this kind of newer crop of creators, and like I said, I'm not talking about all of them. There's definitely writers who stand heads and tails above some of the others. But it all kind of seems like they watched Clueless once and thought that was how everybody talked.
What if
A 60-year-old man who's a telepath shouldn't sound like a 13-year-old girl who shoots fireworks. They shouldn't sound the same.
Well, she's also useless, but that's the point. Maybe this could just be a crazy thought. Maybe I don't know what I'm saying. But what if it's that people are trying so hard these days to force everything to be neutral that that's the way that it's transforming the way that they write these characters into that?
Oh, there's definitely some of that at play, I think. Because if you post something up or, you know, something gets released and you worked on it and there's some sort of outrage on Twitter, which I swear to God, outrage on Twitter means that 20 people tweeted angrily about it, you know?
20 famous people.
No, just 20 people who have a lot of time to tweet.
Oh, wow.
And they tweeted like 200 times. And so it seems like all this outrage, but reality is like 20 people. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of creators who create being afraid to get that sort of clap back, you know? But why even create if that's what you're going to do?
Yeah, if you're afraid to create what you're creating,
Uh-huh.
what the fuck are you doing? You're not making art at that point. You're being censored. Isn't that the whole point, is to be uncensored?
It should be.
To write what you want, what you feel.
And to say what you want to say.
Yeah, you know, you artists don't make things because they're censored.
Right?
They make things because they're not. They make whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
That's what a real artist is.
Yep.
But you know, that's a debate.
Do we-
Artists. I love them, I hate them. It depends on how big of a dick they are.
Do we want to go into changes on Chronicles von Helsing before we stop the show?
Yeah, hit us with some changes.
So, I'm getting ready to put the hardcover together for Chronicles von Helsing.
Have you colored it?
I am in the process. And as I'm coloring it, I realize that some of the panels, as they stand, just don't work.
Don't work in what way?
The figures don't work. The backgrounds don't work.
Like you need to redraw it?
Not redraw the whole thing, but additional details need to be added in, or characters need to be reposed, things like that. So I'm actually having a meeting with Levon tomorrow, but basically Chronicles von Helsing as it exists in its issue format is not going to be the exact same as what exists in hardcover format. So for the most part, issues number 2, 3, and 4 are going to be unchanged. Issue number 1 won't be changed at all. I'm not changing anything in Tony's story. But issue number 5 is actually going to have probably about 12 to 13 changes.
Well, that's okay. You know, you bring it all together, especially when you throw in, you're dumping paint on top of it.
Yes.
So things have to change, because it's a pretty dark book.
It is. Yeah, some of the way that the characters were drawn and everything, it was confusing to some of the audience. They weren't able to follow which character was which in a few scenes, stuff like that. So we're adding a bit more detail to some of the characters to clean that up and make it a bit easier to read.
You can have Levon do that?
I think so. I'm having him do a few tests to see if he can match the style. Because I don't want to change the style. I just want it, cleaned up to a degree. You know, some of the characters need a bit more definition, things like that. So I'm pretty positive he can handle it. But I'm going to be having him do some changes and then coloring over it.
He should sneak Inspiratu somewhere in there. Like
if he wants to stick him on a painting or something in the background, I'm not opposed to that.
He should do that.
I don't see why he can't if he wants to. I don't care.
Well, you should tell him that. You'll see him before me.
Okay, I'll tell him that you said that.
You got. I mean, if I were an artist, like some sort of comic book artist or something, I don't care what it was. Maybe I make paintings. I would totally do things like that. Sneak little things in there.
You know, I actually ask my artists to all the time when I'm writing, but there's only a certain percentage of them that will for some reason.
Man, that's lame.
Yeah, so I'd say probably 70% of them will, and of that 70%, probably 30% will go a little bit beyond what you asked and sneak in even more. But
that's great.
But I write in references all the time to other stuff, and I would say about 70% of it makes it through.
Why wouldn't you want to draw something in there that you could hope would get through?
I don't know. With Chronicles, so one of the things I'm hoping Levon can help change, actually, is with Chronicles, issue number 5, I wrote it every single time Sally was shown. She's supposed to be in a nightgown that has Metrex from Captain Cure, Ty's book, on the nightgown. So it's supposed to look like a superhero girl's nightgown, but featuring Metrex, right? So I wrote that every single page, but there's not a page that exists in issue number 5 that has Metrex on the nightgown. So that's actually something I want fixed before I go into the coloring stage, is I want that put on there. You know, it's kind of a tribute to Ty. I want that back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are just kind of some of the changes. So that's going to be something we'll have to deep dig into a bit more when we get going on that. But in any case, Chronicles Volume 1 should be ready to go this year. So.
And it's not changing the story.
No.
It's just changing the way the panels look.
Correct. Yeah. No, I'm not changing the story. And it's not some big drastic altercation to the artwork. It's just fixing up some of the stuff that was a little bit harder to read.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, sometimes you see differences in books when you read a series.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you read like Bone, the comics had changes before they went to trade paperback form, and then the trade paperbacks had changes before it was in the 1-volume edition. So, yeah, it's not like it's new and independent comics that people do this.
No, you always have to clean things up where you can and when you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Understandable.
But anyway, I think that's good for tonight.
Well, we did a good job talking about bullshit.
Yeah, we ripped on Bill Maher, and So once again, Bill Maher, angry at comic industry because he got beat up by 14-year-olds coming out of what was probably a superhero movie.
It's totally what happened.
And even if it's not, he did for a fact get his ass kicked by 14-year-olds coming out of the movie theater. So there's that at least.
Half true.
Right? So just keep that in mind, comic industry. All you fans out there, if you got bullied when you were a kid, at least the bullying stopped when you left high school. You didn't come out of a movie theater and get your ass kicked by 14-year-olds.
Well, probably not.
Bill's got a lot to be sad about. He does. He gets beat up by 14-year-olds coming out of a movie theater. So, that's it for tonight. I'm Adam Watson.
Robert Diaz.
Thank you for listening.